Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? First one in today. Evening, Miles, CMF. Joe, good to see you. So how you doing? How you been? Hello, Miles and CMF. Scott, good to see you, brother. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and CMF. But XRP, good to see you. How you doing? Good day, CMF. Good day, Miles and CMF. Mike, good to see you, brother. How you doing? How was your day, Miles? It was a long day, to be fairly honest. How was your day, Scott? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Free and Feather, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Just going to pin the live before we start off. Good evening, Miles, and all CMF. Addy, good to see you. How you doing? Great job every day, Miles. Thank you. Let's go, Scott. Pin to your profile. Pin. Miles, was I first today? Nope, Pablo was first today. Hello, brother Miles. Hope you're well. T, good to see you. How you doing? Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Okay, let's do intro, disclaimer, what we're going to talk about on tonight's live. I am back home. I'm not at my business partner's house. So, welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday, Friday, 10 p.m. long time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Pretty much vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live show, essentially, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. This is episode 400, essentially, and 27 of the CMF Live show, what you're watching right now. Thank you so much to everybody who has already liked and retweeted this live if you're watching us essentially on X. And thanks so much to everyone who's also watching on YouTube, who has already essentially liked the live show as well. And a special thank you to everybody who's put a comment outside the live on X or on YouTube. Now, on tonight's live, we're going to be talking about the US and China. We're going to be talking about the crypto market space in terms of different perspectives, essentially coming from CEOs, again, of how they see essentially the market to go forward, because we still are in January in Q1. So there's so much perspective from different CEOs. We're going to talk about some Binance news on tonight's live as well, which is going to give us an indication of where the market space is heading towards. We're going to talk about the United Kingdom on tonight's live show as well regarding stable coins. We're going to be talking about an American state who has decided to create their own stable coin. I'm going to give my perspectives on that. We're also going to be talking about on tonight's live regarding things that are happening in terms of the stock market and the crypto market essentially intertwining together, and obviously Ripple news to go through on tonight's live as always. Now, the first news is regarding the US and China, and it's just a piece of news that I just wanted to share with everybody, essentially, just in case something might come out of it later on. But before we talk about that, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we'll go straight into essentially the first news on tonight's live. So let's see where we are at inside the comment section. We were at here, I think. Hi, Miles. When you expect the market on XRP narrative to change? When do you expect it to change? I would say give it a little bit of time. We're still in Q1. Are you back home now? Yes, I am. I'm back home, no longer at my business partner's house. Good evening, Miles and CMF crew. Good to see you as well, Paul. How you doing? Miles, congratulations on number 427. Thank you so much, Scott. Hello, Miles and CMF. Comatose, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Now, first news on tonight's live is regarding China and the US. And it's just a piece of news that I just wanted to share with everyone, just in case later on something comes out of it. So, there was essentially a company that was sanctioned by the US, and it was a crypto company that was sanctioned by the US due to an immense amount of fraud. And the US was able to seize a huge amount of Bitcoin, which was one of the biggest essentially cases the US essentially went through with. And China has decided to arrest the exact same people involved by the looks of it, and nobody knows why China did this. So here it is. Bitcoin war between the US and China. China arrests owner of 127,000 Bitcoins, but there's a catch. According to essential reporters from the International Communication Center in Cambodia, the Cambodian Chinese Times, Chen Zi, the founder essentially and chairman of the Prince Group, was detained in Cambodia, essentially extradited to China for further investigation. This is the same group the US also essentially sanctioned and was able to seize a huge amount of bitcoins from them. The Cambodian essentially interior ministry, speaking to retainers, stated that all of yesterday's essentially repressions involved 3 Chinese nationals, including Chen Zi, Zi Lingju, and essentially Shai Lu Hu. The US and the UK also added numerous entities linked to Prince Group and Chen Zi to their sanctions list back in October, accusing the group of operating large-scale, essentially fraud centers that exploited migrant workers. British sanctions targeted 6 entities and 6 individuals, while the US Treasury Department announced actions against 146 people allegedly involved in the Prince Group, which was essentially an organization that was set up to steal as much as it could from ordinary people. On the other hand, Chen Zi had also made international headlines due to his cryptocurrency assets. As you may recall, in October 2025, the US Department of Justice announced that it had seized approximately 127,271 bitcoins, allegedly essentially under Chen's control. These assets were valued approximately $15 billion at the time of essentially writing, making it one of the largest cryptocurrency confiscations essentially linked to Southeast Asia. This development has essentially brought back into discussions following his recent detention in Cambodia and the extradition essentially process to China. While uncertainty essentially persists as to whether the Prince Group chairman is indeed essentially among the 3 extradited, China's essentially foreign ministry and public essentially security agencies have yet to essentially respond to requests for comments on the matter. Nobody knows why China picked up the exact same people that were sanctioned by the US and essentially the US seizing 127,271 bitcoins from them for the time being. It's just odd that China decided to do this exact same maneuver when the US technically already essentially bleeded them dry in terms of their bitcoins. Do they have more bitcoins that they're hiding and China wants to get their hands on it? Is that why China has essentially arrested the exact same people the US sanctioned and seized 127,000 plus bitcoins from them? We don't know for now, but it's just odd movements inside the market space that China is doing. I just wanted to share that with everyone just in case something comes out of it later on, so you have an essentially better idea when it does reach the news. Now, moving on from that to essentially the FDIC. The FDIC essentially proposes rules for bank-issued stablecoins. This is brilliant news. It's very bullish news for the crypto market space, to be fairly honest. Before we go through that, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the first news. I just want to say essentially to everybody inside the comment section, can you spam the comment section with whatever you want, emojis of fireworks or flame emojis or whatever you want in general, just so that that isn't the first comment everybody sees. Everybody can see the first comment. I've already blocked the moron. I don't know who it is, but just in case, I don't want anybody to see that as the first comment. CMF members, just spam the chat with fire emojis, rocket emojis, or whatever you want. Go for it. Hello, Miles, the CMF Comatose. Good to see you. How you doing? I'm an OG. I'm proud to be. Let's go CMF. Let's go Scott. Let's go Miles. Let's go Scott. I love my family. Let's go Scott. Evening, Miles and family. Good to see you as well. Susie, how you doing? How you been? Morning, Miles and CMF. Let's go Shelly. How you doing? Morning. How you been? Joe, thank you so much for the spam. Hello, Miles and CMF. Mickey, good to see you as well. How you doing? Thank you, Susie, for that. John, thank you. Mike, thank you. Bull XLP, thank you. Joe, thank you. Let's go 2026. Let's go, Susie. Thank you so much, everyone, for spamming the chat. So that wasn't the first comment everybody gets to see. Some, once in a while, we do get 1 or 2 morons inside the live. Mike, thank you so much as well. Thank you so much to everybody from the CMF who spammed the chat, essentially. So that wasn't the first comment everybody gets to see. Now, the FDIC is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. The FDIC essentially proposes rules for bank-issued, essentially, stable coins. Regulatory bodies, essentially, globally are enabling banks to issue stable coins, as seen, essentially, in the FDIC proposal and the UK's, essentially, sandbox initiative, while banks manage associated risks. Now, we know that, essentially, there is some sort of essentially connection between the UK and the US since Trump made that second visit to the UK, and they talked about the tech space and the AI space and the blockchain space in general, and the amount of investments that's going to be happening between the United Kingdom and the United States. And because of what happened back then and the digital sandbox they created, regarding the FDIC coming out now, suggesting that, stablecoin regulations, the UK and the US joining together, this is extremely bullish. This shift essentially indicates a balancing act between the United Kingdom and the United States, innovation and control, and potentially impacting the financial markets and paving the way for new financial products. As everybody knows, the capital of politics is Washington, D.C., the capital of money is essentially City of London, and the capital of religion is essentially the Vatican City. So these two massive behemoths coming together for this is huge. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, has proposed new regulations for banks issuing stablecoins through subsidiaries seeking public feedback. This proposal essentially aims to enhance regulatory oversight on stablecoin issuance by banks and potentially affecting essentially competition and innovation in financial markets. The proposed rules essentially by the FDIC require bank subsidiaries to ensure all essentially full reserve banking for stablecoins. They must maintain essentially a detailed disclosure, including monthly financial information. Under the Genius Act, essentially framework, banks must comply with new standards, enhancing essentially transparency and oversight in stablecoin issuance. This essentially step aims to bolster confidence in financial systems, and the new regulations could prompt banks and fintech firms to rethink essentially their business strategies moving forward. Enhanced oversight might deter some players from seeking stablecoin approvals initially. In other words, with stablecoin regulations, the UK joining the stablecoin regulation essentially scheme, it will essentially stop, stablecoins that don't really have the backings and the stablecoins that do really have the backings and they're willing to show it and become transparent essentially with the United Kingdom, which means we can essentially, put stablecoins in a category. In other words, USDC compliant, RLUSD compliant, USDT not so much. You get the picture. Analysts predict that possible shifts in market dynamics as banks strive essentially for compliance and innovation. The rules could lead to an environment of increased scrutiny essentially and potential benefits of market stability. In other words, regulation does bring market stability. It takes us out of the Wild West and puts us in a very structured foundational market space. These measures reflect past trends in global financial regulations. Similar initiatives in regions like Hong Kong stress reserve essentially banking and compliance to maintain market integrity. Experts believe the FDIC stance could essentially foster stable growth in crypto markets, and historical essentially trends do suggest a positive trajectory compliant institutions in highly regulated environments. As essentially Nikhil, essentially the chief executive of the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA inside the United Kingdom, said, supporting growth helps consumers improving their financial resilience and providing more choices. Our reforms essentially help the UK maintain its global competitive edge in our world essentially leading essentially whole space markets, attracting international investments and lead on innovation in financial essentially services, which is brilliant. Honestly, the UK and the US, aligning together in this blockchain essentially world. Amazing news, bullish news, essentially for them both to be moving forward on it, and especially for the UK to be finally taking some sort of steps inside the crypto space. Now, putting that to one side and going into essentially Wyoming. The state of Wyoming essentially is thinking about releasing a stablecoin on Solana's network, and it's going to be called essentially, the ticker is FRNT. The Wyoming Stablecoin essentially Token Commission is the first US public entity to launch a stablecoin. A frontier stablecoin essentially has chosen Solana, which is currently leading the tokenization competition. The Wyoming Stable Token essentially Commission announced the trading launch of the Frontier essentially stablecoin. The asset is the first to make use of the Genius bill and create essentially a stablecoin launched by a public entity. The token was essentially announced back in August 2025, but has now started its trading history. FRNT is yet to establish its supply and spread more wallets and essentially trading venues. The FRNT stablecoin will acquire essentially interest from its reserves, which will benefit the Wyoming school program, for example. Interest essentially will not be shared with token holders, who can only use the asset for P2P transfers. The new stablecoin will trade through Wyoming's essentially Kraken exchange, which will offer the Solana version of the token. Now, is this a brilliant idea? Yes and no. The idea that American states are accepting stablecoins is amazing. The idea of any government essentially or any politician accepting stablecoins is amazing. The idea of politicians creating their own stablecoins is a terrible idea. It's like a celebrity creating a meme coin. It's just bound to end bad. Now, I get what they're doing. Essentially, the interest earned on stablecoins is going to go towards school programs, for example, which is an amazing idea that interest on stablecoins can essentially power that. But the reality of it is, let's just be honest with ourselves. Politicians, when have they ever worked in our favor? Except Donald Trump, I'll be honest. But he's not really a politician, he's more of a businessman. So FRNT can also be acquired through essentially Visa-affiliated platforms, Rain, which will essentially carry the Avalanche version. FRNT essentially is an asset-backed stablecoin that uses USD, essentially fiat reserves, and its backing. The asset is essentially thus fully compliant and will also use reserve to acquire interest. FRNT does not use the bond-backed, essentially stablecoin model, which was adapted essentially by leading stablecoins like USDT. FRNT also essentially be bridged through Stargate to be used on AVAX, Base, ARB, Ethereum, Optimize, and Polygon. The Commission will audit new candidate blockchains each quarter to expand the presence of essentially of FRNT. The official FRNT page claims the stablecoin can be acquired and used by anyone in the world, limited only by cracking its exclusion list of countries and regions. The Wyoming Stablecoin Token Commission will not directly sell the asset. Instead, FRNT will be distributed through the network of resellers, which will screen buyers on the other side. The token is essentially supported on Phantom, Binance, Web3 Wallet, Backpack Wallet, and Solfair. Essentially, trading has already started on Kraken. FRNT essentially a growing pool of stablecoins with over $314 billion in total market capitalization of stablecoins, not FRNT's essentially market cap. Stablecoin issuers are consistently creating new essentially tokens, fighting the challenges of fragmented liquidity and real demand. Right after launching, FRNT still had only a handful of holders. The reason why essentially FRNT hasn't done too well as a stablecoin launching from the state of Wyoming is because nobody wants to use it. It's just the reality of it. Regarding essentially stablecoins, the only stablecoins anybody should be looking towards is RLUSD because it is the only fully compliant stablecoin. USDC because they have shown essentially compliance, even though they once did depeg, but that was a situation with essentially a particular bank and a particular token. But bring that to one side, these two tokens regarding stablecoins are the only ones essentially compliant. And RLUSD is a lot more compliant essentially than USDC is, to an extent. But the idea that states creating their own stable coins is just going to be a complete disaster. Politicians should be nowhere near regarding anywhere near any sort of crypto projects. And I'm not saying there's a lot of politicians around this one in any sort of a way, but it screams that something is around it. And as I said, the idea of the yield that the stablecoin can earn going towards school programs, amazing. But is it really going to happen? Probably not, if I had to say. If it does, that's incredible. But the reality of it is I've never seen any sort of maneuvers like that before. Politicians will say a lot of things, and nothing ever gets done. Now, Polymarket, essentially, is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. Polymarket and the Dow Jones deal puts prediction markets data in Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal and Polymarket coming together with the Dow Jones essentially is incredible. It shows you essentially that crypto is entering every aspect of the financial markets. Polymarket has partnered essentially with Dow Jones to make its prediction market data available to users on multiple platforms. In a notice that came out today, Polymarket and Dow Jones said the prediction market data would be available on the Wall Street Journal. Barron's essentially and Investors Business Daily, among others, according to essentially the company's Polymarket, will be featured in dedicated data modules on websites and essentially select print placements. Dow Jones CEO essentially Alama said that the decisions was based essentially on helping clients better interpret market sentiments and essentially assess risk moving forward. Polymarket founder essentially and CEO Shane said the partnership would combine journalistic essentially insights with real-time essentially data market probabilities. Founded in 2020, Polymarket has grown to become one of the top prediction market platforms, rivaling essentially Kalesky. The platform essentially drew heightened essentially attention during the lead up to the 2024 US presidential elections, when essentially its markets were closely watched and ultimately correctly anticipated President Donald Trump as the victor. If everybody remembers, Polymarket was the number go on website for betting essentially on anything, and it did guess correctly who was the next president of the United States, while CNN essentially struggled to face the facts. Crypto companies essentially and exchanges have also deepened their ties to essentially prediction platforms, of Coinbase announcing essentially on-chain prediction markets with Kaleski in December. In December, essentially, Polymarket said it identified and resolved a security essentially issue affecting a small number of users on the platform, and the company said the breach has since then essentially resulted and is back to normal. Following the capture of essentially Venezuelan President essentially Nicolas Maduro at the direction of essentially Trump over the weekend, Polymarket essentially settled a contract predicting the leader would be removed from power. Essentially, a trader netted more than $400,000 in profit from a $32,000 bet. These are things that essentially happen on Polymarket. Why are platforms like Polymarket important for the general crypto space? Because it gives you an idea of essentially what the majority are thinking about. And I'll give you an example. When it comes to, for example, trading on the crypto market space or trading in general, there's multiple methods you could go down. It could be the analytics route, it could just be news, or it could just be rumors, or it could be a combination of everything. But psychology plays a major role in essentially trading. Psychology plays a massive role. In other words, what is the majority thinking, and what is the majority about to do on the market space? And platforms like Polymarket give us an idea of what the majority are thinking, because it's not just people voting yes and no, it's people putting their money down for yes and no. And when people put their money down for yes and no, that means that they're going to be essentially doing those sort of actions. So if somebody says essentially we think that XRP is going to be getting that vote in essentially at this particular time, or regulation is about to happen at this particular time, everybody's putting their money down. You have an idea of what people are about to do. Are they about to long the market or short the market? It gives you an idea of what's about to happen next. And when it comes to trading, that is incredible. Honestly, when it comes to essentially the markets, that is absolutely incredible to have an idea of what the majority think. Because as I said, trading is a combination of a lot of things. Analytics, has a part to play inside of it. News has a part to play inside of it. Rumors have a part to play inside of it. But psychology is the most important, in my opinion, of what the majority is thinking right now in the market space. For me to have a better idea of what's about to happen next. That's why markets like Polymarket are very important, I would have to say. And for it to be intertwining into essentially the Wall Street Journal and the Dow Jones, massive. Now, tokenization. It does show that Wall Street is taking it serious as well, because psychology genuinely plays a big part. Now, tokenization. Super cycle, a word that everybody's been hearing essentially since the end of 2025. We're going into a super cycle in 2026, is what's been mentioned by multiple CEOs. And Bernstein decided to jump on the bandwagon as well and say that 2026 is going to be a super cycle. But their perspective is that essentially tokenization is going to be the one that makes the super cycle inside the crypto space in this year, 2026. After a choppy essentially end of 2025, Wall Street broker Bernstein said crypto markets have likely bottomed, and it sees a broader-based tokenization boom reshaping the financial markets. Wall Street broker essentially Bernstein said 2026 is likely to mark the start of tokenization super cycle, with digital assets hovering probably bottomed after the weak end of 2025, making essentially market dips an opportunity to add exposure to crypto-linked essentially stocks. The broker essentially says sentiment weakened essentially later last year, but underlying fundamentals remain essentially intact. Now, stablecoins in particular are seen essentially moving beyond crypto trading to mainstream banking and payments, as we essentially talked about. The FDIC talking to the United Kingdom, to essentially the Financial Conduct Authority, to the United Kingdom regarding stablecoin regulations. We can see that stablecoins are getting closer and closer entering the banking space. Stablecoins and essentially are cryptocurrencies pegged to assets like fiat currencies, or it could be to gold, as we previously talked about. Bernstein pointed out that the growing adoption essentially by fintech, by fintech essentially companies is also growing as well. In other words, fintech companies entering essentially the banking field, companies like Ripple, for example, Paxos, or essentially Circle, that tech companies are shifting from tech to essentially finance, and that the new banks moving forward will be tech companies. And I agree with that 100%, that tech companies are slowly becoming the next banks essentially of the world. But that is from Bernstein's perspective, and it's massive that they're saying this. Now, moving on essentially from Bernstein's perspective, to the world elites. But before we talk about the world elites, let's go to the comment section first, see what's happening there, and then we go straight into the next news on tonight's live. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you have any questions, put it as a comment section. More than happy to help you out. So let's see where we're at. We were here. Let's go CMF. Let's go Scott. XRP, XLM, XDC, HPRO, and HOT. Let's go Scott. All amazing projects. Yo, hi, Mr. XX. How you doing? Share the live. Let's go. Share the live. XRP is currently at $2.17. Thank you so much for that, Scott, for the update. Scott, let's go. Share the live. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Evening. Good to see you so pure. How you doing? How you been? Okay. Now, world elites. Want to invest big in crypto, and Binance is moving to help them and bring them inside the market space. So here is what Binance released today, and this is coming from the head of essentially Binance. Binance's head of VIP and institutional, Catherine Chen, talks about the conservative, essentially the conversations she's been having with ultra wealthy investors and family offices. The world's ultra-rich face a challenge, Catherine said from Binance. They want to invest a big chunk of money in cryptocurrencies, but most traditional banks aren't providing them with comprehensive support beyond ETFs. That's an indication that the ultra-wealthy, the world elites, don't just want to go for ETFs anymore. They actually want to enter the crypto space. But they're a bit optimistic in terms of should they enter for crypto market spaces, do they trust crypto market spaces, or they just want to stick with banks and see what the banks will provide for them next. Do you know what's interesting about this? That Ripple essentially turning into a bank would bring so much credibility to XRP that the world essentially ultra elites that are waiting on the sidelines and just want to shift over from ETFs to the actual crypto space can actually do it. And they could go for XRP because Ripple will be a bank and the world elites trust banks. And Ripple offers XRP as a bank and RLUSD. Just picture that for a second. While the rest of the crypto projects, Solana, Ethereum, Chainlink, and all that, they're all foundations. They're not going to be essentially applying to the OCC for a bank because they're not private companies, whereas Ripple is. Which is why I've said for the longest time that Ripple can do things other blockchain projects can't. Other blockchain projects have to be tested and essentially sit on the sidelines and put their hands up and say, please use us. Whereas Ripple could just take steps forward and expand the XRP ledger by acquiring businesses or getting licensing. Binance's head of VIP, essentially, and institutional, Catherine Chen, saw this as an opportunity to help through Binance Prestige, a new offering that complements Binance Wealth for high net worth, essentially, individuals, the essentially HNWISs. Oftentimes, when you speak to private banks, they will say, essentially, there's no significant demand for crypto beyond ETFs, Chen essentially said in an interview with CoinDesk. For her, it's a kind of a chicken and egg problem. When it comes to bridging the gap between wealthy clients and crypto, as private banks, essentially, and traditional wealth managers, for the most part, are still trying to become comfortable with digital platforms and digital assets. The ultra-rich family offices seeking to invest more in crypto are struggling to find a proper support from traditional wealth managers and have become essentially a trend. Most recently, a survey by the Swiss software firm Avocox found that the traditional wealth sector is under essentially mounting pressure to deliver digital assets to wealthy clients. In the UAE, for instance, 63% of the ultra-rich investors have switched managers or are considering doing so, according to that survey. That is incredible news. That the idea, essentially, ultra wealth, 63%, just a survey that was done in the UAE, for example, the United Arab Emirates, 63% of the ultra wealthy in the UAE decided to change their banking managers because they wouldn't offer them crypto services. So we went from essentially crypto being a speculative space, a scamming space, a meme coin space that nobody wanted to touch it, to now the wealthy, essentially ultra wealthy, changing their bank managers just to get involved inside the crypto space this year. Looking back to earlier days in the sector, the preferred form of investment in crypto for many family offices was akin to venture capital, Chen said. Some early entrapped essentially family offices did buy spot crypto, but it was essentially a very small subset, essentially matter, not a huge amount of investments, who might allocate a bit to crypto and store it on a hardware device locked in a safe, she said. Fast forward to today. As awareness of crypto essentially asset classes has matured, Chen has witnessed an increasing number of family offices asking if they should have made more moves into crypto earlier on. The ultra wealthy are thinking to themselves now that they're left out of the crypto market space. And they're thinking to themselves, we should have invested a lot more money in the earlier days. And the reason they didn't is because their banking managers said it's a stupid idea to enter crypto. But now they're thinking to themselves, and they're regretting for listening to those banking managers that only had a banker mentality. If these people are asking this question, then it's likely a crypto ETF is not enough for them. This is where Binance comes in, Chen said. Catering to the super rich requires a so-called white glove approach, categorized essentially by a heightened level of communication, hand-holding, and defense. And there's a difference. In practice, Binance Prestige will guide clients through the onboarding process, which includes bridging essentially fiat currencies to crypto and then facilitating their first crypto purchases, Chen said. Customers and crypto purchases will be informed by understanding of that client's backgrounds, history, investment portfolio, and risk appetite. When it comes to helping them in acquiring their first crypto, this is probably not going to be like just any other issue, like any other user of Binance app, Chen said. They're probably going to look at acquiring a big chunk of crypto, and the expectation in this would be done via a phone call or through a chat, whereby essentially there's this high touch service. The new platform targets customers who typically qualify for an account at a private bank, especially for those essentially of assets around $10 million or more. Often there will be specific instructions attached to a purchase. Chen said such a factoring essentially in the things like essentially volume weighted average prices as a key entry indicator, showing an essentially asset average price weighted essentially by algorithmic strategies that divides a large order into smaller, equal sized chunks to be executed at regular time intervals over a specific period. And once a family office has acquired a significant amount of crypto, the likelihood is that they will want essentially to start earning a yield on it, which is where Binance earned products can be utilized, Chen said. However, the risk essentially profile of these investors usually proceeds a foray into areas like decentralized finance, she added. But the Binance Prestige team is ready to help their clients explore more traditional types of sophisticated trading. If there's essentially sufficient volatility, then perhaps plays essentially that volatility so that when the market is not hitting essentially my target price, I collect a coupon, I collect the yield. And once it hits my target price, then I exercise. There is essentially, this is what Chen had to say, Catherine Chen, in such an interview with CoinDesk. There are a whole suite of sophisticated financial instruments available, and many of these well-informed and professionally run family offices will want this, she added. And so this is what Binance Prestige is all about. We will listen to the client, understand their needs, and execute accordingly. With large investments come greater demands for risk management. One of the biggest requests from ultra-wealthy family offices when investing essentially in crypto is how the investments are essentially in terms of custody services and how safe are they. Chen said there is a range of customizable options when it comes to custody. On the other hand, there may be users who are comfortable with Binance's essentially security and ISO standards and will leave their assets on the exchange, Chen said, while others prefer to use hardware wallets. For more versatile, essentially crypto narrative solutions, we can introduce them to our institutional partner, which is essentially SAFU, Secure Asset Fund for Users, she said. Another option is for ultra essentially high net worth clients and family office clients is essentially banking a tri-party. This can be essentially very useful if they already have a private banking relationship and the bank is also within our banking trifecta network. Tri-party networks usually refers to a neutral third-party custodian. In other words, the high wealthy, essentially ultra-network person's bank has some sort of connections with a middleman, and Binance has the same connection with that middleman. As far as what's to come next, there have been hints that traditional high net worth essentially services such as succession essentially planning might be on the cards as an add-on to Binance Prestige. Chen said she was unable to discuss the roadmap of things yet to be announced, but noted more broadly that the way in crypto, essentially in which crypto can be passed on to the next generation, is a theme she encountered more and more. A lot of people got into crypto maybe 10 years ago when they were essentially maybe in the late 20s or early 30s. They were single entrepreneur pioneers. Now they are family people who have kids and have started thinking about planning things out. So the high net worth ultra clients, the world elites, want to enter the crypto space this year. Reason why? Because they feel like they've been left out. Why? Because their banking managers lied to them or were uncomfortable on telling them to enter the crypto space for the longest time. That's why 63%, in terms of a survey that was done in UAE, of high net worth essentially individuals changed their bank managers. 63% changed their bank managers just to enter the crypto space is a big deal. Because if it was 2 to 3%, you wouldn't think much of it. 63% shows an indication that even the world elites want a piece of the pie now, and they're feeling left out. That's why Crypto.com, Kraken, Binance, Coinbase, and a few other platforms at the end of 2025 all announced that going to 2026, they're going to be having this type of prestige platforms, the same as Binance is having, because we're shifting away from retail money to institutional money and world elites and regulations and utility. That is massively positive. That the world elites are now feeling left out and they want to enter the crypto space now. So you that are holding crypto right now, sitting at home, should feel extremely lucky, because somebody that has tens of millions of dollars in their bank account, hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank accounts, is feeling left out from the crypto space. So if you are holding crypto and have been holding for years, you should count yourself very lucky, because the world elites are regretting for not entering sooner. Now, and if you thought to yourself, essentially you were upset about crypto, stressed about crypto, don't be. Because people, honestly, people who have hundreds of millions of dollars are regretting for not entering earlier. So you should be essentially extremely happy about your position and grateful for your positions inside the crypto space. I am. Everybody should be. Now, moving on from the world elites inside the crypto space to the Senate. The Senate Agriculture essentially committee to follow banking panel in crypto vote next week. I want to go through the report now. But before we do that, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we'll go straight into the next news. As previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So let's see where we're at inside the comment section. Miles, with all the current events going on, will that take away from the crypto movements? No. It's actually going to add to the crypto movements. Greetings, Miles, and for the world to go digital. Okay. For the world to go digital, the plan regarding the 1998 economic essentially article that was released, and essentially the playing cards that were released from the Rothschilds essentially a long time ago. We're talking about 1998 here. It talked about a one world order, which is something that's been discussed for the longest time inside the crypto space, that we're going towards a one world order. So regarding your question of, with all the current world events, is that going to, factor into the crypto space and maybe in a negative way or so on? Is it going to take it away from the crypto space? No, it's actually the reason why all of these things are happening in the world is to go into essentially a digital world. You see, a few central banks aren't controlled by the Rothschilds, in other words, simplest way to put it. Bank of North Korea, Bank of Iran, and a few other ones aren't controlled essentially by the world elites, the simplest way to put it. So it was always the plan to essentially neutralize South America, and it was always the plan to neutralize Iran, because we can't go into a world order, there's one type, one government, one world order, or one digital world, or so on, with people who don't want to go into it. And countries like Iran, North Korea struggle with the idea of a one world order, struggle with the idea of a digital world where somebody else has a voice and they don't. If you can, so regarding again on your question of, is this going to take away from the crypto space? No, genuinely, it's not going to, because in order to control the Middle East, Iran is the key to control the Middle East. It's always been the key to control the Middle East. Whoever controls Iran controls the Middle East. There's a reason why Russia and China have been controlling Iran for the past 45 years. Because whoever controls Iran controls the oil and gas of the Middle East. Pretty much the simplest way to put it. So the reason why the US wants Iran so extremely bad is because whoever controls Iran has the key to the Middle East. There was essentially an interview that I saw, a podcast that I saw today, where two, an economist and essentially the podcaster were, doing questions back and forward. And he put it perfectly. I will actually share it inside a Telegram group of the CMF. If anybody wants to see it, I'll just post it on essentially X. But it's the key to the Middle East. If you want a one world order to work, you need to essentially have control of Iran. Also, when you have control of Iran, Russia and China will lose their power because they no longer control the Middle East. So is it going to take away from the crypto space, this whole world event that's happening? No, it's actually, all of this is happening because we're going into a digital world. It all has relevance. Everything you see in the world right now, it all has some sort of relevance going into a digital world. Everything has relevance. Regarding using Ukraine to weaken Russia has relevance. The way essentially they're out of nowhere. Why did for 45 years America didn't care about Iran? For 45 years they didn't care about Iran, but now they do. It's because now it's the time. Trump was in power once, but he didn't do anything. But now he is. Why? Because we're going into a digital world. There's many reasons of why things happen, essentially. So is it going to take away from the crypto space? No. This is actually happening because of the crypto space. All these world events that are happening is because of the crypto space. Greetings, Miles and CMF. Lena, good to see you. How you doing? Hi, Miles and CMF. John, good to see you. How you doing? And the best, the best part about it is the people of Iran, my own people, will be free from this, honestly, nasty, horrendous regime that's controlling Iran. So thank you, America, for that. Honestly, thank you, Donald Trump. Are you surprised that XRP price is only in the $2 range? Yes. But would you have thought it should be higher even without the Clarity Act not being passed yet? No. Because there was a hurdles to jump through. So am I surprised that XRP is cheap for what it is? Yes and no, the easiest way to put it. Look, XRP would have been at a much more higher price point if essentially the Democratic Party wasn't so against the crypto space. The Democratic Party was against the crypto space because they were weaponized by the banking sector to slow down the infrastructure inside the crypto space so that the banking world could catch up. Because the banking world could tell that once the tech firms, essentially turn into some sort of banks, which is happening right now, they could actually take over the banking sector moving forward. So am I surprised it's low? Yes and no. There's a lot of politics in between. Hello, my friend. I would have thought essentially XRP would be a little higher than where it is, but let's what Miles has thoughts on. Great question. Super bullish. So much money yet to come into the space. Let's go facts. Bro, Jasmine was pumping. Let's go for that. Axe. Well, if you're holding Jasmine, that's good on you, honestly. Yeah, let's go Scott. As a person that voted Trump 3 times, you're welcome. Thank you. ZBCN thoughts. ZBCN. It's for me, it's not a must-have project. I used to hold it a long time ago when nobody even heard about the project. It promised a lot of things, never delivered. If it delivers now, good on anybody that's holding the project. For me, when it comes to the best crypto projects, it's the financial ones. The most important thing inside of this whole digital world is money. The only thing that spins the world is money. Money is that essentially makes the world spin. So anything inside a digital world that's linked to the foundation of money going digital is the most important factor. Anything else around it is just, cherry on top, essentially. So XRP, XLM, XDC, essentially, HBAR, and even, Cat on is putting some movements now, but I wouldn't say, it has the crown in any sort of way over XRP. Cat on Bear says hi. Cartoon Bear says hi. Oh. Don't listen to the noise, just focus on the prize. Exactly, let's go. Facts. So are those movements by the elitists designed to benefit the elitists in crypto? I am not an elitist, but I am going to follow the money. It is. Whatever the elites tend to do is to benefit their own pockets. They don't care about the little guy. But for us, it's, okay. 2 years ago, when I used to do TikTok lives, I said to everybody, if you can remember my exact words, this is what I said. I said to everyone inside of CMF, if you're an original member of the CMF, you know that I said these words. I said about 2 years ago, 3 years ago on TikTok lives, I said, you want to enter here inside the crypto space before everybody else comes on top in terms of essential institutions, the banks, the world elites, and so on. I said, you want to enter here before they come on top of, essentially, on top of your investments, which is exactly, fast forwarding 3 years is exactly what's happening, where the world elites essentially are feeling left out. Now they want to enter the crypto space. They're regretting not entering earlier. And that's what I said to everybody about 3 years ago. I said, you want to enter here, essentially, before essentially everybody else comes on top, before essentially the floodgates open and their money comes on top of your money, essentially, where, you bought in here, now it's here. Those are the exact words, essentially, I said about 3 or 2 years ago, essentially, on TikTok lives. If anybody remembers, I said, you want to enter here before they enter here, which is what they're talking about now. In terms of Binance talking about the elites and so on. And that this is why I'm saying you should be grateful for entering inside the crypto space here before their money comes on top. Now, facts, you did say that. Thus, I'm still sitting where I am with XRP. Let's go, Scott. Pelosi is the traitor with a 60% return on stocks, says it all. Follow their money, but no, they want you crushed. Facts. Now, the Senate Agriculture essentially committee to follow essentially banking panel in crypto vote next week is what we're going to talk about now. The Senate essentially Agriculture Committee has previously released a discussion draft of its market structure legislation. The Senate Agriculture Committee intends to hold a markup hearing, essentially, and a vote next Thursday to advance, essentially, crypto market structure legislations, the Clarity Act. Joining its banking counterpart, essentially, are news reporters and some CEOs and some other perspectives that are coming out. The Agriculture Committee has not yet formally announced the hearing, and neither has the Banking Committee for that matter, though the Senator, essentially Tim Scott, who chairs the banking panel, said in a press essentially remarks that he was targeting January 15th, essentially, to be the sit-down for the Agriculture Committee to be discussing essentially the Clarity Act. Both committees have previously released discussion draft bills addressing how the Commodities Future Trading Commission and the Securities essentially Exchange Commission will oversee the crypto regulations inside the US. The Agriculture Committee oversees the CFTC, while the SEC is under the Banking Committee's jurisdiction, meaning both essentially committees will need to advance the same bill before the overall Senate can vote on the legislation. Neither committee has released updates text ahead of the next essentially week's hearing. Lawmakers on the Banking Committee met essentially to discuss the bill, and the document released afterwards outlined a number of asks from Democrats working on the legislations, with the notes detailing whether they had been accepted. Other notes detailed outstanding issues, prominent among those essentially ethics or concerns. Democrats have raised an alarm over the US President Donald Trump's family and his ties to various crypto businesses, even threatening the stablecoin-focused Genius Act last year over these ties. The reason why the Democratic Party is against the Genius Act and how it was done is because they're weaponized by the banking sector. Because it's so obvious that the banking sector came out and said that the Genius Act makes stablecoins look good because people can earn yield on their US dollars, and we can't offer that inside the banking space, which means about, according to their own numbers, $7 billion exit is going to be happening from the banking sector straight into stablecoins, and more of it is going to be entering the essential stablecoin sector once people catch on that they can actually earn a yield on their dollars. So which then the banking essentially, the bankers themselves put pressure on the Banking Association to go after the OCC and the SEC to tell them to, maybe revisit this whole Genius Act. And they told the Senate essentially to revisit the Genius Act. It's so obvious that the banking sector is extremely threatened by the blockchain sector because they know a takeover is going to be happening. And it's so obvious that the Democrats are on the bankers' side, not the innovation side, because it's only the Democratic Party that keeps on coming out, especially Pocahontas coming out essentially and saying that, that they're angry that the Trump family is making so much money from the crypto sector and that the Genius Act essentially is not a good act. Why is the Genius Act not a good act? It brings so much innovation towards the United States. But the reason why it's not a good act is because the banks think it's not a good act. Their words just align together the perfectly essentially put it. And regarding essentially, Donald Trump's family making tremendous amount of money from the crypto space, I couldn't care less. I honestly couldn't care less that Trump's family is making a huge amount of money from the crypto space. Do you know why? The simplest way to put it? Because we're also making money on the sidelines. Whereas with Nancy Pelosi, for example, a Democrat, essentially, and other Democrats or even Republicans, when they make money, only they make money. So for someone like Pocahontas to be coming out essentially and saying that, Donald Trump's family is making so much money from the crypto space, Pocahontas has an immense portfolio that beats hedge funds. Has anybody in the United States made any sort of money from Pocahontas on her immense stock portfolio? No. Has anybody made any sort of money in the United States or the world from Nancy Pelosi's portfolio? No. You know why? Because only they are making money. But when Trump makes money, we make money, because Trump is the man that passed legislations that wants to make America the capital of cryptocurrencies, which means we can benefit from that. So if Trump's family wants to earn more millions from the crypto space, good on them, because at least they're sharing the wealth, something that Nancy Pelosi and Pocahontas struggle with. So this is why I couldn't care less, essentially, that, Trump is making millions of dollars, because at least he's given us a piece. At least he's passing legislations for us. At least he essentially got rid of Gary Gensler. At least he made the essentially CFTC pro-crypto. At least he made the OCC pro-crypto to allow crypto companies essentially go from tech firms to being essentially banks. At least he made the FDIC pro-crypto. At least he's about to make the Fed pro-crypto. So I genuinely couldn't care less that Trump's family is making millions of dollars on the sideline, because we're also going to be earning on the sidelines. But we didn't earn a single penny from Nancy Pelosi's portfolio, or essentially the insider trading Pocahontas was doing. But they have the cheek to come out to say Trump's family is making millions of dollars. What about you? Honestly, under the Senate essentially produces, the committee are supposed to post their legislation language by Friday for the Thursday essentially markup, but insiders are doubtful that the new drafts will be ready in time. Do you know why they won't be ready in time? Because Pocahontas doesn't want to be ready in time. Necessitating essentially use of old language as a stand-in. Meanwhile, Senate essentially staffs will be working furiously to churn out the updates, whether essentially it has stamp of approval from the Democrats or not. So it seems like the Republicans are going to be moving forward, whether we get a stamp of approval from the Democratic Party or not regarding the crypto space. The deadline next week was imposed by Scott, the chairman of the banking panel, though it is not tied to any specific constraints in the Senate calendar, other than a general political pressure to move urgently on crypto. Unfortunately, Pocahontas is on the banking panel as well. But lobbyists are quietly wondering whether alienating essentially Democrats is the right move towards getting the baptism bill they hoped for. 100% it is. 1 billion% it is. 1 trillion quadrillion percent it is. Democrats should be nowhere near the crypto space. So regarding the Republicans thinking to themselves, should we just, not give a voice to the Democratic Party for the crypto space? Yes, please do it. Because every step the Democratic Party has taken for the crypto space has backfired. Every step. They weaponized Gary Gensler. They weaponized the OCC. They were weaponized by the Banking Association. They were weaponizing the CFTC. They were weaponizing to sue multiple crypto companies. Every step the Democratic Party has taken so far for the crypto space was horrendous. Zero innovation and absolutely horrendous. So yes, 100%, 1,000,000,000%, keep the Democrats out of the crypto voting. So if they're really thinking to themselves to do that, please do it. Please. Everybody from the crypto space wants that to happen. In previous months, the main players in this process had been lawmakers from both parties, White House officials, federal regulators, and crypto insiders. But the increased noise from the traditional financial sector, the banking and the securities, has inserted itself into negotiations on several points, including stablecoin yields and how to protect software developers. Democrats, who are historically at odds with TradFi lobbyists, have in some cases been moved by their arguments about threats to the existing financial system. As you can tell, the only party that's protecting the banking sector is the Democratic Party. It's been said from the Senate, essentially, the only party that's protecting the banking sector is the Democrats. The only party that cares about why are the average Americans earning yields from their stablecoins is the Democratic Party. Why? Because they're weaponized by the banking sector. It's like they hate American citizens for some reason, or everybody else around the world. Now, moving on from that to JP Morgan. Before we talk about JP Morgan, let's essentially go through the comment section, let's see what's happening there, and then we'll go straight into the next news on tonight's live. Let's see where we're at. I'm glad I don't have any money. Let's go, JP. I forwarded an article to the CMF Telegram saying that the Clarity Act wouldn't be passed until at least 2027, as the Dems want to stop Trump family to be in crypto space. What's your thoughts on that? I also saw the article regarding essentially, being discussed that until 2027, the Clarity Act won't be passed because of the Democratic Party. Do I think Trump is going to allow that? No. Trump is the type of man that doesn't listen to anyone and does pretty much whatever he thinks is right, which in this case, in any case, most cases, I agree with him 100%. Please do it. So regarding Democrats trying to halt the crypto space until 2027, this is why the Republican Party is trying to take the votes away from the Democrats when it comes to the crypto space. I forwarded an article. I read that. I'm sitting here with XRP XLM waiting for institutional money to positively impact my money. Let's go, Scott. We better stop listening to the banks. They give us little on interest on our money. We'll then loan it out to others and make a lot more on our money. Facts. Absolutely facts. Miles, you know that I'm not a Trump fan, but I do not care about his family making money. I am trying to make money for my family too. Facts. Let's go, Scott. Elizabeth Warren is buying crypto while testifying against this progress. I agree. Facts. Exactly. Let's go, Stormy. If anyone is a friend on my Facebook page, they will see that I have been calling for Schumer, Pelosi, and a few other Democrats, along with a few Republicans, that get in all the way of the Americans making an economy. Let's go, Scott. I do not trust 80-year-old politicians and banker hedge funds are holes drawing up legislations. At least hedge fund guys are motivated by naked greed. I agree with that as well. Let's go, Scott. Most Democrats are a menace to society. I agree as well. Let's go, Stormy, and let's go, Scott. Now, JP Morgan. JP Morgan is thinking about issuing its JPM stablecoin directly on privacy-focused Katon network. Just want to point one thing out. To me, out of all the big behemoth bankers and institutions out there, the number one bank out there that I see was the one weaponizing politicians, the SEC, the CFTC, was JP Morgan against Ripple. That was the number one bank in my eyes because they saw the threat of what Ripple is about to become. I'll give you an example. JP Morgan decided to use Ethereum when SEC was essentially suing Ripple Labs, essentially, and kicking them out of the country, in other words. And they thought that was going to slow down Ripple's progress. In fact, Ripple went outside the United States and went completely international, which backfired on the essentially weaponization of the SEC to go against Ripple. And at the end, Ripple won the case. So, regarding JP Morgan first going to Ethereum, and when they did that, I said to them, essentially, I said, when I read that news, I said about 2 years ago that they're making a big mistake, that JP Morgan is making a big mistake and it's going to backfire. And then there was discussions about JP Morgan moving to Solana. Now there's discussions about JP Morgan going to be using Katon Network. At one point, genuinely, at one point, JP Morgan is going to be realizing that they should just use the XRP ledger and wave the white flag. Or, for an eternity, they can jump from network to network. The Kinix-led essentially move aims to bring regulated digital cash to a privacy-enabled blockchain for real-time interoperable finance. JP Morgan's blockchain business unit, Kinix and Digital Asset, announced plans to bring the bank-issued USD deposit token JPM coin natively to Katon Network, a privacy-enabled public blockchain for synchronized financial markets. The move signals a growing institutional shift towards real-time interoperable digital money that can settle alongside tokenized assets and smart contracts. The company said, essentially, major market infrastructure provider, essentially DTCC, recently also selected the Katon network for tokenization of traditional finance instruments, illustrating real institutional support for blockchain-based settlements. DTCC also recognized Ripple a long time ago as well. JPM coin represents US dollar deposits held at essentially JP Morgan and lets institutional clients make payments using a digital token on distributed ledgers. By issuing JPMD directly on Katon, the two firms aim to essentially expand regulated interoperable digital money that institutions can issue, transfer, and redeem within a secure, synchronized ecosystem, according to the release. The co-founder and CEO essentially of Digital Assets said in a statement that the collaboration delivers regulated digital cash that can move at the speed of markets, positioning the initiative essentially as a bridge between traditional finance infrastructure and digital ledger technology while maintaining privacy and compliance. Do you understand why Ripple applied for a banking charter license? Navon, essentially, global co-head of Kinix by JP Morgan, said JPM coin and Katon can increase efficiently and unlock liquidity through near real-time blockchain transactions. The integration will unfold in phases throughout 2026. The initial focus is establishing technical and business frameworks to support JPM coin issuance, transfers, and near-instant essential redemption directly on Katon network. The collaboration will also explore connecting additional Kinix digital payment products, such as JP Morgan's blockchain essential deposit accounts, to the ecosystem. The Katon network is governed by the Katon Foundation with participation from global financial institutions and supporting real-time compliant settlement across multiple asset classes, essentially on shared infrastructure. Institutions participating in 24/7 US Treasury financing on Katon have also used tokenized assets to settle transactions outside traditional market hours, underscoring the network's potential for continuous synchronized markets. Okay, honestly, can you tell now why essentially Ripple decided to acquire companies to push itself inside the financial sector? Can you understand why now that Ripple is applying for a banking charter license? Can you understand why now that Ripple went completely international, created multiple licensings worldwide to push itself further inside the financial sector? And can you understand, most importantly, why Ripple doesn't want to have an IPO? Because if Ripple does an IPO, essentially, is what we're going to talk about next. If Ripple has an IPO, I said this a while ago as well, a long time ago I said this. I said it's an extremely power move, smart power move by Ripple, that they don't want to have an IPO. Because it shows that they want to be in control, not be controlled. So with essentially, JP Morgan using the Ethereum network first and then talking about using Solana and now using the Katon network, is because they can control what happens essentially next. But when it comes to XRP Ledger, they also want a piece of the pie of Ripple. And as long as Ripple stays private, it shows that Ripple is not here to play nice, as I said a long time ago. Ripple is here for a takeover. And that's why it was the #1 company to be sued by the SEC, weaponized by the banking sector, most obviously JP Morgan, because they know how much of a threat Ripple could be. So, we still plan to remain private, says Ripple's essentially president on IPO plans. Ripple Labs President Monica Long has ruled out an IPO for the company, saying it was in really healthy position without going public, because it is. This is two indications. One, as I said also a long time ago, Ripple has money. They don't need to go public. Two, it's a power move. It shows honestly that they don't want to be controlled, that they want to be in control. that they want to dictate the future of Ripple, the future of the XRP ledger, in terms of, giving some perspectives on it, the future of RLUSD and the future of XRP. Ripple Labs President Monica Long has ruled out an IPO for the company, saying it was in a healthy position without going public. In an interview with Bloomberg, Long essentially addressed rumors that Ripple was planning to go public after reaching essentially a $40 billion valuation. The company president said the company was focused on growth following the $500 million essentially fundraise headed by Seattle Securities and Fortress Investment Groups that led to its valuation. This is also another step. Essentially, keeping private means that you get these essentially investments coming in. Currently, we still plan to remain private, said Long, expanding on her comments in November after the fundraise. Often the strategy essentially driving an IPO is to get the access to the investors and the liquidity of the public markets. We're in a really healthy position to continue to fund and invest in our own company's growth without going public. They want to be in control, not be controlled. The comments from Long essentially going to 2026 came months after the US SEC announced it would wind down its enforcement actions against Ripple, fueling speculations that an IPO might be next. And I said it's better that they don't go towards an IPO. A year ago, I said it's better that Ripple doesn't do an IPO because it's better for them to stay private because they could be in control of what happens next. At the time of writing, the price of XRP essentially was $2.20, having dropped essentially about 6% in the previous 24 hours. The token is the fourth largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization. In December, the US OCC conditionally approved the applications for Circle and Ripple for national essential trust bank charters. BitGo, essentially Fidelity Digital Assets, and Paxos also received conditional approvals to convert an existing state-level trust companies into federally chartered national trust banks. Ripple's application said its charter would not be a stablecoin issuer for its US dollar peg stablecoin, essentially RLUSD, while the other companies will provide a variety of digital asset custody services to users of the applicants, and BitGo has announced essentially plans to go public, and Circle also launched an IPO. When a company goes IPO, it reeks of desperation of essentially we need money. We want to make more money. It reeks of desperation of greed. When a company as big as Ripple with a $40 billion plus valuation doesn't go public, it shows that they are essentially, that it genuinely shows that they have money, they don't need money, and they want to be in control. Now, on top of that, XRP becomes the top cryptocurrency trade of the year. According to essentially CNBC has revealed that XRP has become the hottest cryptocurrency trade of the year, outperforming both Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's what's being said on CNBC, that XRP is the hottest cryptocurrency, outperforming Bitcoin and Ethereum. Major. Also true. XRP's rise signals shifting investor interest, potentially influencing market dynamics and highlighting emerging digital asset trends. According to CNBC, XRP has been described as the hottest cryptocurrency trade of the year. This recognition comes as XRP surpasses traditional giants. The announcement highlights a significant market shift, and market analysts are closely observing XRP's rise as it continues to outpace other major essential cryptocurrencies in trading volume and in investor interest, which is most important. This shift in market essential dynamics has caught the attention of traders and investors. Many are reevaluating their portfolios to include XRP, seeking to capitalize on its growing popularity, perceived stability. The potential financial implications are vast, with some suggesting XRP could redefine market trends. Increased attention might lead to more robust market evaluations and speculative opportunities. XRP's rapid rise in popularity mirrors historical trends seen with earlier disruptive essentially digital assets. Traders are considering the implications for regulatory frameworks as XRP's popularity essentially grows. The surge may lead to increased scrutiny for financial authorities, and XRP's newfound signature essentially rise questions about the potential regulatory, technological, and strategic outcomes for the cryptocurrency market. Also, regarding XRP, why macro analysts are talking about XRP and BlackRock again. So there's some speculative news going around, which I want to share with everyone, just in case it does turn out to be true somewhere down the line. XRP is back in focus after macro essentially analyst Jim Willey essentially said the token's neutral positioning and deep liquidity could make it more attractive for large financial players. Ironically, the perfect timing because Binance is talking about high ultra wealth world elites are thinking about entering the crypto space and they're regretful not to essentially enter the crypto space earlier on. So, speaking in a recent essentially discussion, we described XRP as a neutral compared with other cryptocurrencies, saying its quality gives it broader flexibility. He said XRP's liquidity stands out because its underlying infrastructure is already widely distributed across global markets. Willie also suggested essentially there may be more essentially happening privately between Ripple and BlackRock than is essentially publicly known, which is true in my look. The news I'm reading you right now is speculative, but what is true is the question that Larry Fink was asked essentially on live news. In other words, he was asked the question of, Bitcoin ETF, Ethereum ETF, and then he was asked about XRP, and he said, I can't talk about that one. When the CEO of BlackRock says, I can't talk about that one, is an indication that there's an NDA involved. Because if there wasn't, any sort of communications or some sort of connect between Ripple and BlackRock, he could have just said no. But when the CEO of BlackRock says on live news, I can't talk about that one, it's a massive indication of what's about to come. So what Willie's trying to say is on the money. He said that these comments were speculative and not based on official announcements, but said discussions he had heard about pointed to corporations that he viewed as positive for XRP's long-term role in finance. I heard something, I don't want to make a big thing about it, but it could be that Ripple had a lot of its development behind BlackRock walls. And Ripple is now the public face while BlackRock is the private equity face, he said. He described a possible structure where Ripple acts as a public-facing technology company while BlackRock operates more quietly as an institutional partner. Neither Ripple nor BlackRock has confirmed any such agreements, because when BlackRock was asked about connection between Ripple, he said, I can't talk about that one. BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager and has steadily expanded its presence essentially in digital assets, including crypto-related investment products, and a deeper involvement of XRP-linked infrastructure would closely be watched. Given BlackRock's influence across global capital markets, Willie said that if major institutions eventually support XRP-based systems, it could significantly affect how the token is used in payments and settlements over time. He warned, however, that such outcomes remain hypothetical essentially for the time being. Also, regarding XRP, a lot of XRP news today. Also regarding XRP, XRP spot trading is now live on Hyperliquid with Flare's FXRP listing. FXRP allows XRP to be traded on Hyperliquid's on-chain essentially order book and can later be bridged back to the XRP ledger. Interprobability blockchain Flare said essentially it launched the first ever XRP spot market on the Hyper essentially liquid by listing essentially FXRP for spot trading, starting with essentially FXRP USDC pairs. The listing is the first time traders have been able to get XRP spot exposure on Hyperliquid's on-chain order books per a release shared by CoinDesk. Hyperliquid is an on-chain trading platform essentially built on its own high-performance layer 1 blockchain with trading volumes crossing $185 million in the past essentially 24 hours. FXRP essentially is an XRP representation enabled by Flare's essentially assets system and Layer 0's Omni-chain token standard, which allows the token to move across chains and trade on Hyperliquid and later be bridged back towards the XRP ledger through an on-chain flow. Flare's co-founder, essentially Hugh, said the goal is to expand where XRP can be used without treating custody as an off-chain assumption. By combining essentially Flare's assets infrastructure with Hyperliquid's order book, we are expanding what XRP can do across DeFi with preserving XRP ledger as an essentially settlement layer. Hyperliquid has built its market structure around order books models rather than automated market maker pools that dominate most DeFi venues. That structure can offer tighter spreads and more reliable executions when trading activity is heavy, which is why spot listings can matter for larger essential participants looking to essentially hedge perhaps exposure or manage risk across venues. Flare said that FXRP will route to Hyperliquid through its Hyper EVM layer and then into Hypercore for spot trading. A dedicated essentially bridge using Flare's smart accounts is expected to follow, enabling one-click withdrawals back to the XRP ledger as XRP. The pitch is straightforward for traders. XRP holders gain access to deep on-chain spot venues with familiar execution tools, while Hyperliquid essentially native users get a new large-cap asset without needing to onboard essentially through centralized custody or separate chains. Flare also said that essentially FXRP can also be bridged back to Flare after trading to access XRP, essentially FI, use cases as lending and staking, keeping the cycle on-chain end to end. So, there was a lot of XRP news to go through on tonight's live, and it's always great to have a lot of XRP news to go through. The most important factor on the XRP news, one, CNBC saying XRP is the hottest crypto project to go for, essentially this year. It's outperforming Bitcoin and Ethereum. Two, Ripple deciding to stay private is incredible, my move. In my point of view, as I said for the longest time, it's a power move to stay private and not go IPO. It shows you have money, and it shows you want to be in control, not be controlled. And also, regarding Binance talking about the ultra wealthies essentially coming inside the market space now and feeling essentially that they regret not entering soon enough, makes you all at home, feel warm inside, you can say in the simplest way to put it, that you entered at the perfect time, because the guy that has millions of hundreds of millions of dollars to his name is regretting not entering sooner. If you ever want the confidence in your crypto portfolio, that's the biggest confidence booster right there. That the person that has hundreds of millions of dollars to their name is regretting not entering the crypto space soon enough. Sooner than essentially back then compared to now. On that note, that XRP staying private, power move. XRP being the hottest crypto project, power move. XRP and BlackRock behind the scenes, we'll have to find out, but it's an indication because BlackRock CEO said I can't talk about that one. We have come to the endings of tonight's live. This was essentially the CMF Live. Stands for Crypto Miles family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. long time onwards. In this live, we'll talk about cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Pretty much everything you should know about regarding the world completely transforming into digital space. The disclaimer of this live was essentially not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes, as always. And this was episode essentially 427 of the CMF Live. Episode 428 will be tomorrow. Obviously, before we do go, let's go start the comment section. By the way, thank you so much to everybody who has liked this live show, retweeted this live show, and put a comment outside the live on X or on YouTube. Thank you so much to everybody from the CMF or anybody new who has liked and retweeted this live show. Thank you so much to all of you. If you haven't, like and retweet the live show, CMF members, it helps a lot. And I appreciate it a lot when everybody likes and retweets the live shows and puts comments outside the live as well. So before we do go, let's go inside the comment section. Let's just see what's happening there. Now JP Morgan needs to be partners of Ripple. At some point, JP Morgan stockholders are going to be pissed off by the indecisions by JP Morgan leaders. I agree, 100%. Hi, Miles CMF family. Sorry I couldn't be there earlier. I will catch your live show again. Sorry to remind you. I'm still waiting for your valuable answer. I thought about something else. Carl, I'll check out the message you sent me. Sorry about that. In the meantime, I wish you a nice evening. I will try to be there for tomorrow's live show. Thanks in advance for your reply. Let's go, Carl. Love and respect, family. Let's go, Scott. Miles, any news on XDC, XLM, HPRO? Nothing has came out so far on those. Hey, country, good to see you as well. How you doing? Ripple is a solid with the company's purchase and the money it has. It does not need to go public, and it stay away from the government meddling. I agree with 100%. Darn good point, Miles. I found that odd too. Let's go, Stormy. BlackRock and XRP is going to rock the crypto world soon. I would say within 12 to 24 months. My humble opinion, not an advice in any way, shape, or form. Let's go, Scott. Share the live, wonderful people. Let's go, Scott. Hello. Ripple is a strong financial company. It should cause investors, novices, and experienced to feel confident in their investments. Facts. Let's go, Scott. I've been stacking more Flare, but scraping together for more XRP as I can. Let's go, country. So if Ripple refuses to do an IPO, that means the only way to invest in Ripple is to buy XRP. Correct. Thank you, Miles and CMF. Let's go, Mike. See you tomorrow sometime as usual. Great live, Miles. Good night. Let's go, Comatose. See you tomorrow sometime as usual. Thanks, Miles, and thanks for another great evening. Let's go, Scott. See you tomorrow sometime as usual. Scott, congratulations on program 427. Let's go, Scott. See you tomorrow sometime as usual. Night, Miles and CMF. See you tomorrow sometime as usual as well. Pablo, the group reflects your leadership. Let's go, Scott. Thanks so much for the kind words. Good night, Miles and CMF. Great live and XRP news. See you tomorrow. Free forever. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Thank you, Miles. Susie, let's go. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Thank you, bunch, Miles. Good night, all. Let's go. Lena, see you tomorrow. Same time as usual as well. Good night, Miles and all CMF. Thank you for a great live and news as always. Let's go, JP. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Good night, my friend. Yes, thanks, Miles. Let's go. Cisco Scott. Scott, see you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. Great live. You're the only person I feel safe listening to and asking questions in this space, which is filled with fake news. You are both informative and honest, and you cut through all the BS. So thank you. John, thank you so much for the kind words, brother. And I'll see you tomorrow, same time as usual. See you tomorrow night, Miles, for another great evening. Let's go, Addy. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. I agree with you. Let's go, Scott. See everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are around the world, CMF members. And see you all tomorrow for episode 428 of the CMF Live. Like, follow, comment, retweet if you haven't. Smash the like buttons and retweet buttons if you have. Thank you so much. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, family and friends. Let's go, Scott. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual.